Well, the early doctors were Shakopee, Dr. Buck from Shakopee. So yeah, Eden Prairie didn't really have, our downtown was really Pioneer Trail and Eden Prairie Road. Those were our two downtown roads. There was a Rowland store over where Wooddale Church is, and that house is actually still there. It's back off on the side there. It's used as a group home, I think, today. But yeah, I mean, it was rough, it really was. And Amy kept a little journal, and in her journal it does talk about a lot of babies dying, because that's what happened back then. The man that built my house lost 2 children to diphtheria, at the same time. So 2 and 4 years old. They're up at the Eden Prairie Cemetery. So there was a lot of death back then from a lot of diseases that we have, immunizations for today, thank goodness. So, yes?
Say something about the word Eden, as in Eden Prairie. Say something about that, please.
Well, it's about Garden of Eden. They named it because of it looked like the Garden of Eden.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But where did the prairie come from? Because it sounds like a river town and bluffs.
Mm-hmm.
How did they get the idea of prairie?
Because we are prairie. Yeah. If you go down by the river and you drive up all the bluffs, we've lost a lot of our native prairie plants, and farming, of course, took away a lot of it too. We were very wooded as well. We had beautiful woods that they had to stump, take out. One of the things that I think is interesting is, why would people come here from the East Coast? They already had a house, and already had a nice lifestyle, right? Why would you come to Minnesota? And it's land. I mean, beautiful, rich soil. And if you were a farmer, and you could have your own land, that's pretty amazing. And it had never been plowed. It had never, ever. It was virgin land. And in Vermont, remember, the rocks. A lot of rocks. Hence all those rock walls everywhere. And hills, mountains in a lot of places. We were pretty flat. And the bluffs were really rich. And, like I said, the first people were settling down as a town down by the river. But then you come up, and the airport land and all of that was very rich. Did you have a question?
Yes. Kathy, have you ever thought of writing a book continuing on from where Helen?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
You should.
We've got really great pictures, and they keep coming up, and some really good pictures. Helen's book is amazing.
Yes.
And we do sell it for $20. And if you're interested in just learning from the very beginning, that's a good way to start. I get calls from people that'll say, I live here, what was here? And the first thing I do is go to a map. And that's why these maps are back here for you to look at. And you look at the map, and you look at the name, then you look at the file. We have a file usually on that name, and I look in here. Because Helen really, really did a great job.
We have such a human touch for it that I think would be a beautiful book.
Thank you. Yeah. Someday when I have more time. I have 4 grandkids now too. It's really fun. Barbara.
The very first picture, you had a woman who came here and named it for Eden Prairie. It runs in my mind that in City Hall there's a plaque that says something about she had something to do with Edgar Allan Poe. Am I totally off base?
No, she had an affair.
I didn't remember that.
We forgive her.
So is that why
she was really good friends with Mrs. Ramsey, Governor Ramsey's, yeah. And she was really well known. She'd written some famous books. Women were coming out as writers, And she hung out with that group, If somebody wants to Google on their phone, when you Google it, comes up with several other authors that she was with, they hung out. Elizabeth Fry Ellett. Fry's Ellett. F-R-I-E-S, yeah. I wanted to just share one other thing because I did bring a book bag with me. So a couple years ago, we did a presentation, Historical Society, about this book, and it's written by Maud Lovelace. She wrote the Betsy Tacy books, and she's from Mankato. She wrote this book in 1936 called One State at Welcome, and it's a fictional story, but Welcome is Eden Prairie. And their society came and talked to us about it. We bought a bunch of books, and we decided this is really a fun book that educates you on early settlers coming to Eden Prairie. It's fictional, but the two main characters, we think one of them is JR. And it's just really fascinating because she talks about Welcome Lake, which is Starring Lake. She talks about the river. She talks about Purgatory Creek and things like that. But it's kind of a story about early settlers coming to this town they were calling Welcome. And so what we did is we created book bags for book clubs. And if you're interested, I'll leave a bag here, but we have a bag that has 10 books, and you can have them in your book club. And then we put together like all these worksheets about like how you can compare the characters, the lakes, the places. You know, we feel that the store is the Goodrich store. So we have like all these notes of comparison that you can talk about at your book club and learn from it, the real history and this part of it. And it makes it really fun. So would you like me to leave the bag here for maybe a book club would like to try it? Okay, I'll leave a bag here. We have 3 bags like this that we lend out for free for people because we think it's a fun way to learn. So we'll leave the one bag here. Paul, I'm going to call you up here.
Okay.
Paul is a newer member of our board, and he's a retired surveyor, and he also serves on the Heritage Preservation Commission, and he actually is, he talked about how important it would be to do archaeology where that old town of Hennepin was, and so because of him, the HPC got a grant to actually do it. So Paul we're very grateful, Paul, to have you.
Thank you very much. Paul Thorpe, again, I'm a land surveyor. I started my business here in 1980, so I've been surveying in Prairie for almost 40 years. So I know all the little nooks and crannies everywhere. I got interested in the town of Hennepin about 15 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about that. I've got some handouts. I'm not as technologically advanced as Kathy took the PowerPoint. So my stuff's all on paper. We'll talk about 3 things today, kind of in order of when they occurred in history. And first is the Minnesota Valley Trail. The second will be the town of Hennepin, and the third will be the actual survey of Eden. Back in the early 1800s, there was a trade route from the Selkirk reservation, which is up where Winnipeg is now, and north of North Dakota. And they had trading routes between there and St. Paul. There was a whole variety of different trading routes, but the one I'm going to talk about is the Minnesota Valley Trail because it went through Eden Prairie. They would start in Winnipeg and they would go down the west side of the Red River until it intersected with the Minnesota River, and then it went along the south side of the Minnesota River. And if you kept going on the south route, it would end up in Mendota. But back in the 1840s, there was a north route that crossed somewhere around Harbor. And that went through Eden Prairie and went to Breaker Fort Snow. I think I'm gonna pass that around, it's really hard to look at here. But this is a map of the Minnesota Territory from 1849. You can see I traced out in red where the trails went through. Now, the first page of that handout is the ox carts that they took on this voyage. And it would take them 30 days, which is 448 miles. It's pretty quick. And those ox carts were made out of wooden wheels, and then they had wooden axles, so there was no lubricant on the axles, so it just screeched like crazy. People said they could hear them for a half mile away, these ox carts going through. And the axles, because they would wear out from the friction, would only last about 5 days. So they would have to cut a tree down, re-load the axle, and put the wheel back about 6 times per trip. And you can imagine that was a dangerous trip to get from Winnipeg to St. Paul, 30 days. They would bring in furs and trade in and then bringing back supplies. In a few pages, or maybe it's the next page, I had a map of where the trail goes through Eden Prairie. And it would come in from Shakopee on 101, just north of the river. There's kind of a parking lot where you can put your boat in the water. So the trail follows along the north side of the river, and it's called that Indian Road. Came up to a bend through Stephen Peterson's property down by the go north up to what's now Flying Cloud Drive, and follow Flying Cloud Drive down to where it's Riverview Road, and then continued sort of halfway down the bluff until it crossed Purgatory Creek and went into Bloomington. Back in 1863, the residents of Chaska didn't like that road because it was too hard to get their goods to market. So they petitioned the state to build a new road to get their goods to Bloomington. So they widened that ox cart trail to its lane to get their stuff to Bloomington. And 14 years later, that road was abandoned. And what's now Riverview Road, which is on the top side of the bluff, is where they rerouted it. Now, what we found is that road still exists. About 7,000 feet of that road still exists along the middle of the bluff, and you can walk it. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, it's just real steep, and then there's a 12-foot little plateau, and then it dives down again to the river. And that's there, and it's a pretty neat discovery, and we're hoping we can protect that. So that happened, all that happened from the 1820s up into the 1860s with the ox carts. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the town of Hempton. And there was several town sites developed right at the same time. It was Harbor, was probably the first, Shakopee, Chaska, and the town of Hempton. And there was a huge market of land speculation back then in 1853. And the town of Hempton was developed by a couple of groups. This side was developed by a consortium of 6 investors. And then this side was developed by John McKenzie. And then a little piece up here was developed by a surveyor named Case, as it turns out. There were a few things that showed up on the plat, and the copy you got in there probably small. See, but there's a warehouse down here right by the river. And that's, these were land claims, by the way, before the survey came through. And they had a warehouse here, and they had a wagon shop, wagon and blacksmith shop right there. The Minnesota Valley Trail, the Oxcart Trail, went right through like that.
Huh. Is Richfield any part of that?
Richfield and, well, I don't think Richfield goes down to the river.
No.
But then Bloomington was a
Bloomington.
big part of that, and they had a group, and I haven't been able to find any information about it, that was interested in the trail, but I don't know that they've ever found any remnants of the trail. So that was the town of Hennepin. The town of Hennepin failed because there was a financial crisis in about 1855, and there were a lot of lots sold to investors in here. And when the survey came through, most of the owners of those town plats, Chaska, Shakopee, Carter, knew where their land was, made it to the land office and bought up the land for their town site, $1.25 an acre. Seems cheap, but probably wasn't back then. The people who invested in this did not do that. They just let it go. Probably because they didn't have the money to do it. So the whole thing failed, and then, and really, not much was built in there. There's a few things built later, but it was never really developed. They had places for sawmill and schools and public parks and all the other stuff, and nothing of that ever happened.
Paul, didn't they have an oyster button?
I've heard that, yeah, I've heard that, but I think that was not related to the town, it was just,
Happened later.
or before. So, town of Hennepin, well, just to kind of give you an idea of how big that is, it's 540 acres, over 1,000 lots. It's about half the size of what the town of Minneapolis was.
What is it?
So this is an outline of where the town of Hennepin stood in relation to the modern maps. This is Flying Cloud Drive. This is Pioneer Trail. This is Homeward Hills Road. So it's huge. I mean, had that happened, actually happened, it would have been a big part of Eden Prairie. Next topic is the actual survey of Eden Prairie. 1854, the Hiram Fellows. And I highlight, and in part of your materials, I've highlighted the town of Hennepin area as it relates to the original survey. And you can see they noted that the town of Hennepin was there, but since it wasn't to this large extent, so the surveyor just kind of noted that there was a town site there and mentions it in his notes, which we'll read. So in 1854, they commenced the survey of the Eden Prairie Township, and they set posts every half mile. And you think that that's a big undertaking, and it would be by today's standards, but they got this done fairly quickly. And what they had to do to survey this, they started 1 mile over from the southeast corner, and they measured up on the compass bearing, measured east on the compass bearing, and then see how they fell distance-wise from because the exterior boundaries of the township were already set ahead of time. And they checked to see how they fit with the corner, and then they'd adjust back and down. So they go up and over, up and over, up and over.
Okay.
So how long do you think it took to survey Eden Prairie? 6 days. We surveyed Eden Prairie in 6 days. So what they would do is they'd come up and over, all the way up, check into the top, and they'd walk back 6 miles. Next morning, they came over to this point and repeated the same thing.
Do they use like that chain?
Yeah, they measured that, did that with a compass on a stick, and a surveyor's chain. It was 33 feet long. It was a half chain because some of the steep slopes, it was just be too hard to measure. So it was pretty incredible. And there was a tavern here in the town of Hennepin. So being a surveyor, my guess is they stepped back at the tavern, knowing what they did. So 6 days, and that was to kind of get the bones of the township. Yeah, I bet they did. Yeah. Then they came back in later and did what we call meanders, where they measured the lakes. So they would take, and it was all done in a notebook, and then they would send that back to Dubuque, Iowa, and then a draftsman would draft this from the notes.
What's the circle part right there in the middle?
That's a lake,
That's a lake.
a starring lake.
Okay.
That was Mitchell.
Where's Lake Riley on there?
Lake Riley down here, it's right here, and that's half into Carver County and half into
Thank you.
and the surveyor noted every house that they came across. They would measure roads, they would look at slopes, and of course the lakes and all the other stuff. So it was, pretty, and the work was pretty good for being done that quick. But you can have a difference of up to, say, 20 feet and a half miles. So not good by today's standards, but still pretty good. Anderson is here. Not it, no, that's not it, that's Mitchell. Anderson's over here. This is Bryant. Duck Lake. Round Lake is, it's section, no, Round Lake is, yeah, let's see Round Lake. Yeah, Round Lake should be right here. But if since they surveyed up along the section line and over, if the lake didn't fall within where they were surveying, they didn't measure. So I think that's about all I got. Any questions? Happy to answer. Oh, I was going to read one last thing, and that's at the end of the survey, part of the surveyor's duty was to just do a general description of the township. And this is what Hiram Fellows wrote in 1854 at the completion of the survey. The soil of this township is of the very best quality. The surface is rolling and some parts hilly. A few marshes and those are small, with one exception, and are considered valuable for meadows. There's a town laid out in the northwest corner of section 35 called Hennepin. There's one large house built which is used for a store and tavern. The town plat is handsomely situated in the high prairie, and all that's wanting to make it a fine town is houses and inhabitants. The largest part of this township is claimed, and much of the prairie is in a high state of cultivation. But very little of the land is claimed, as far as I can learn, by speculators. The Minnesota River, which runs through the south tier of sections, is navigable for steam all season as far up as the rapids, and the rapids are in Carver. The settlers in this township, which are numerous, are very anxious for the land to be brought into market so that they get title to their homes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. We're really lucky to have you. I just wanted to read one last thing here that was in one of our books that I just really love. Historical memories allow us to make informed decisions that guide our actions and behavior and help shape our thoughts. Historical knowledge prevents us from having to begin each time at the beginning. This knowledge influences our decisions, the conditions under which we live, and the outcome of our action or inaction. Isn't that true for so many things? That learning and being educated makes a difference as we go forward. So, yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did want to ask you, when Immanuel was built, there was an area that was where probably that Eden Vale is now, or somewhere in that area. And they said that, what I heard was, that was the last piece of virgin timber that was in Eden Prairie. Do you have any record of that?
Well, we still do have some of our woods, you know, the R.T. Anderson Park. We've saved a lot of the big woods in there. There's some along Dell that were saved, along the old railroad track. But yeah, I mean, we really were very wooded all over the place, you know. So I know that the Feldman family came from Switzerland, and their house was right where the parking lot is of the R.T. Anderson Park. And they came in the 1850s, and they talked about all the trees they had to stump. Like, the boys had to stump a few before they could have breakfast. It's written up. And that's up a huge bluff. And like Starring, they farmed all the way down to the lake. So when you're at the Cummins house and you see the parking lot, the dog park, all of that was farmland, all the way down to the lake. And they had to get rid of all the trees to do that. And you see how fast they come back, you know. And the Goodrich, they had big, beautiful trees all over the place. We have pictures of the little cabins and hammocks, you know, in the trees, and ladies with long dresses on. You know, there was woods everywhere here, except in the prairie. We had it all, but I don't know about that. I'd have to do a little research on that for you. It's a good question. And Ruth, do you want to share anything?
Had to go right to the sink with
Yeah. I mean, you live down by the river.
It's just a lot of exciting history. You hear you talk about it, it came when there were 2,000 people. And then the next year, Ellen started the society.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think too, I have a lot of memoirs written down.
Oh.
And Cindy has a lot. But still, you have a very close understanding of people.
Yeah, there are a lot of Indian mounds,
A lot of Indians.
ossuaries where several are buried together in mounds, and they have to have access to them.
And there are families that live there, like the Browns, and, it has a beautiful history.
Yeah. Yeah, you had, if you were able to build a home down by the river in the 1850s, you came with money, even back then.
And we met the Gages when we first came here, and they had been with radio for the railroad and the Hillcock Lake, and they had no children. So they invited our family and the 4 children to come over often. And then when they wanted to sell their house, they called us and said, we want you to buy our home. We are ready to go into the Presbyterian home. And so that was a big step, big and meaningful, knowing the people that had lived there for so long.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very true. Well, your house was right by the entrance to get down to Hennepin. Yeah. Any other questions, or should I let you guys go eat lunch? Yep, okay. Thanks, everybody. You've been a great group. Thanks for letting us
One quick question, how many of you are interested in taking the free tour of the Cummings house after we eat? How do you want to work that? I mean, we will all drive. Does everybody that wants to go know where it is? Okay, a couple do not know.
Maybe you can have one person make the way there,
Okay,
and then maybe Katie and I'll go just real quick ahead of you.
okay, so what time do you think? 12:15, is that too long to eat your lunch or what?
Probably by 12.
Okay, so if we can meet at your house, for those of you that are interested, at 12 noon or thereabouts, and then you would just leave for home after you've had the tour, so.
It's right on the corner of Pioneer Trail and 212, but the turnoff is a little tricky. You go like you're going to the dog park or back to the park. So that's the only thing. There's signs.
Okay.
I'd be happy to take a couple riders, if anybody wants to ride with me, I can take up to 3 people.
Yeah, because she lives here, back here.
And then I'll bring you back to Emmanuel. So, just let me know.